Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for Succession Season 2, Episode 2. Alright, so we're back for Episode 2 of Season 2 for Succession. Really enjoyed Episode 1 last week. If you've seen my review for that one, if you haven't already, I suggest you go check that one out. But just really thought it was a great episode in building this foundation for what we might see going forward in this season. And I thought it was much better than the Season 1 premiere, if that counts for anything, right? So just a really great start to the season, and this one was just as good or maybe even better than last week's episode. Thought this one was another fantastic job. And the main thing in this one too that I really enjoyed is the almost perfect balance between comedy and drama. And the last episode had some really great comedic beats, but also had some really great dramatic moments, and this one even more so. I really enjoyed that, and I think that's what the show's biggest strength is at this point, and that's just something that I love about it. So anyways, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this episode. What did you think of it? How does it compare to last week's episode for you? And what are some of your thoughts on going forward this season? What you think will happen with some of these big storylines, like the CEO job with the kids? Will Logan stay on? As long as the season runs, what's going to happen with Tom and Greg, right? So anyways, love to hear all your guys' thoughts about this one. Love to discuss the show with you. And I do want to share, just before we get into it, that the show has been now renewed for a season 3. Just a couple hours before I'm making this review, the news kind of broke out that HBO's renewed it. So that's really awesome news. Really excited for the show to be coming back for another season. I believe we're getting 10 episodes this season again, so then Season 3 was renewed for 10, so we'll get 30 episodes then, at least for now. And the ratings for Episode 1 and this episode so far for HBO have been really crazy. I think it was 1.3 million for the premiere, which is way higher than any of the episodes they got for Season 1. So I'm really happy that more people are checking this one out. I think it's really by word of mouth in between these two seasons here of just how good the show is, because a lot of people haven't heard about it, and I think a lot of people are kind of jumping on the wagon here and really getting into the show. So really glad to see that, and really happy that it's been renewed for a Season 3. But anyways, without any further ado, let's get into a little bit of a recap of this episode, highlighting some of the major moments and developments for some of these characters. Then we get to my rating, favorite character, and some more overall thoughts and kind of predictions, I guess, as to what we might see going forward. Mainly with the CEO stuff that I have some thoughts on that I'd like to share, but that'll be towards the end. But anyways, for now, let's get into a recap. So we start this one off with they're at not a circus really, but an amusement park, I guess, one of the amusement parks, and they have closed it down just for the family. I believe it's Kendall's daughter's birthday, and so she's kind of running around, and the family's just kind of hanging out there for the party. Meanwhile, Logan, though, he's trying to get ahead and change the ongoing narrative about the takeover, and so he tells Roman and Kendall to go to Walter to see if they really did get screwed with the deal they made with them, as people are saying, right? And obviously, the main people that are saying it is Stu and Sandy on the other side of the takeover. We see Stu on this, I guess it was some type of interview on TV, on one of these financial news programs, right? And so he's kind of downplayed it. He's like, oh, they got screwed on Vulture and all that stuff. And so Logan wants to know, right, if they did, they need to right the ship so that they can get another win, right? Or at least what appears to be a win, and kind of spin the narrative about the company being in a downturn and Logan not being fit to lead it. And that's something that Stu is really hammering home in this interview that we see, and Logan is just like not having it, right? Stu knows how to kind of get to him, and it's working really well as we see Logan's reaction. So this leads to a very interesting dynamic in the episode between Roman and Kendall, as we see Roman still very mad at him. He's just kind of generally an asshole at all times, to pretty much everybody in the show, maybe except his dad, because he's trying to suck up or something like that. But Roman's still mad at him, right, for what he did. and betraying the company, and doesn't really see him as, part of the family anymore, really. He's almost disowned him, even though he's not his parent, right? But disowned him as a sibling of the family. And so this is a really interesting dynamic here in this episode. And this dynamic ultimately then causes Roman to go completely against Kendall when they meet with Logan to share their findings after, I think it was just like one night or a couple days that they spent at Valter going through a couple of the numbers and stuff like that. And Roman's just like totally against him, even though he really has no idea what he's talking about. And I think Logan even knows that. Kendall points it out. He doesn't even know what he's talking about, right? Roman's just saying these kind of big words to make it sound like he knows, but he doesn't really have any idea. And we see before this too, when he's there, he's not even doing anything, right? He gets a couple guys to like start reading these articles for him and the numbers, and he's basically just sitting there bored out of his mind on his phone. So, of course he doesn't have anything, right, that he actually knows about, but he's going right against Kendall just for the hell of it, right? So, he may actually be right though, which is something kind of ironic here, because we do see the CEO Lawrence being shady with the paperwork. We get a little bit of a glimpse of that after this scene. And so that is interesting, right? That he may actually be right, even though he has no idea what he's talking about. And Kendall, it seems like he is already, as we learn later on, he's already kind of into this already. And I think even at the time that he bought Valter, I don't totally remember this whole thing in season 1, but I think he obviously had his reservations. He knew that the company wasn't perfect at that point. And so obviously he's going to be skeptical, but he's not the way that Roman's thinking and just gutting the whole thing, right? So eventually then Logan sides with Roman, which is a really interesting twist here. So he tells Kendall to gut the company while Roman will come and work with him on the proxy battle. And so this is a huge blow to Kendall's ego. Just insulting to Kendall because he actually knows what he's talking about. Roman doesn't, and Logan just sides with Roman. Basically for the hell of it, right? Let's be honest. Just to basically put it to Kendall, as we see later on in the episode that play out. So, just what Roman was going for here, as he later says that it was Kendall's baby after all, and now he will have to gut it himself. So, and again, it's like, yeah, so he really didn't have any idea what he was talking about. He just wanted to get back at Kendall, and he did just that. Logan actually agreed with him and tells Kendall to gut it, which is going to be challenging for Kendall, but as we see later in the episode, he's able to do it pretty ruthlessly, right? So I think this also just talks back to the fact that Logan's still very distrusting of Kendall, and that's why he ignores him and sides with Roman instead here. And it's also a bit of a test, right? As we see the episode play out, it's really a test that Logan's putting Kendall through, because if he can jump through this hoop, then maybe he can come back to the dark side, if you will, and Logan will have him under his thumb again, just like he wants. And so that's a very interesting way to look at it too. So yeah, is he distrusting? But then he also knows exactly what he's doing, and he just wants Kendall to go through this kind of hoop, and in order for him to get him back under his thumb. So anyways, a really interesting start there. Then we get to Tom. So his stuff this episode was both hilarious and heartbreaking. And again, like the way that the show is able to achieve that balance between the two, when at times it seems it's like almost too comedic, but then it's almost too heartbreaking. But they're able to fuse them together so nicely here, and achieve that kind of perfect tone. Just awesome. So Tom is promoted to this new job at the ATN News Company, which, to be honest, I thought this was a joke. Like, I thought Shiv was lying to Tom and that he was still going to stay in at Parks, but he actually does get promoted. So he gets promoted to this news job at ATN, and his job is essentially to go in for Logan and tell him what, deficiencies there are in the news, and report back with some things that they can improve on. And so we see that Tom is extremely cocky and arrogant now of being promoted to this new job. This is so funny, this moment where he's talking to Shiv and he says, everybody looks like 2 feet tall to me. Just so funny. And then you see where he goes from right there at the beginning of the episode to where he goes at the very end of the episode. It's quite a journey that Tom goes through here. But it's just so funny, right? Like, he is just so cocky and arrogant that he's now been promoted and he's in charge of the news and all this stuff, right? And then we see, just as fast as this arrogance kind of sprouted up from Tom, it is completely taken away because he's quickly taken down a peg, or at least maybe 10 pegs, when he meets with a woman in charge, as she quickly dismisses him as just like another guy coming in there, and none of the other guys have been successful, so you probably won't be either. Stuff like this. And just kind of talks him down. And I love this, how Tom says, thank you very much, and fuck you, right? So, and then he walks out of the room. Just some awesome dialogue here throughout the entire episode, and especially for Tom in this one. I thought just some really great timing as well. The delivery of these lines is what kind of makes it even better, and that's what Matthew Macfadyen does such a good job at. So, now he makes it his life goal to find these extra expenditures within the news company to report back to Logan so that he can cut them in order to get back at her. He uses the term trimming the fat. And of course, he enlists Greg's help in doing so. So it's so great to see them back together, the dynamic duo, if you will. And I love the scene where Greg talks about his principles and that he has principles, and that's why he doesn't want to work at ATN, and he's not excited to basically get into this company with Tom and work for him. Just so funny. And Tom, basically just tells him, like, fuck off. Like, you don't have principles, Greg. And he has a point. I mean, like, let's be honest, right? Like, Greg kind of moves into this family just to take advantage of the wealth, right? And kind of, leech off people and try to get this money. And so, yeah, maybe he does have some principles. And he says, like, well, I'm not racist or whatever. So just a really awesome sequence there. But I have to agree with Tom, man. It's a little too late for Greg to have principles with his ATN stuff. But anyways, really great to see the two of them together. And we do get a really great scene later on. I'm not sure if I'll talk about that, but just fantastic scene between them later in the episode again. All right, so now let's get to Shiv, and her part in this episode was maybe the most interesting, maybe next to Kendall, I guess. But so Shiv goes back to work with Gil and is now offered the position of Chief of Staff by Gil, who has his eyes set on the White House. So this is a really interesting situation here, because this leaves her with an interesting decision, right? Chief of Staff for the President of the United States or CEO of Waystar Royco. And I really like this. I love that they give Shiv this decision and kind of put her into this box where she has to decide which one she wants. And I love the way this plays out in the episode. We see Shiv then goes and talks to Logan a little bit later after she gets offered Chief of Staff, and he gives her his idea of the transition to the job, which involves years of training, almost a 3-year process, to get this training, to get this experience before she would even think about taking over for Logan. And he says, like, after all this, then I'll be ready to step down, right? So it's very, comes with a lot of conditions, I suppose, where Shiv really wasn't thinking about that, right? This causes her to kind of pause, as she doesn't think she needed to spend all that time getting ready for this job. She even fights back against Logan a bit there, but I have to say, I kind of side with Logan, in this situation, because it's like, yeah, she really does have no experience in the company, at least to my knowledge, like, at all. I mean, at least Kendall and Roman have worked in the office before. Obviously, Kendall is the one who kind of knows what he's doing, but Roman at least has worked there and, like, knows kind of the processes for things. She has never even been there. She's never even worked there. And so I kind of side with Logan here. I get it that she would have to work hard and go through this, rigorous training to get the job. But obviously she's not really down for that at the moment. So Logan urges her to tell Tom about the news, as he considers it a done deal, right? So she's a little bit, iffy on telling him, because she doesn't know if it's actually real or not. She even asked Logan again if this is a dream, right? And so Logan says, nope, this is happening. You should tell Tom. So this scene then was, again, a really funny but really heartbreaking scene to see Tom. So she ends up telling Tom, and he is just heartbroken, as he thought that he would have been the one getting the job, and now he hears that Shiv said yes to this, right? And this even surprises him that she would even say yes to this job, because, as we know, right, she, like, before this had no, intent of ever accepting that job. She never wanted it, right? But then when she's offered it, she just bites out, like, takes the chance right away, and takes the job. So again, hilarious, but also disheartening, watching Tom constantly being lied to and put down by Shiv in particular, but just the overall family. Like, he's just been screwed over so many times, though. I guess this promotion to the news is somewhat of a step up for him, better than Parks, and the whole fiasco that he had to go to with covering up all the cruise ship stuff, which was, again, a really funny thing. The death pit, right? That stuff. So, anyways, you feel sorry for Tom in this situation, but let's be honest, he was pretty gullible to believe that he would get the job of CEO at this point in the company. Being the actual son-in-law now, right? He is married to Shiv. But, like, really, like, you actually thought that you were going to get the CEO position. I get it. It's very disheartening and even heartbreaking for Tom. But maybe you should have maybe saw this coming, especially with the family and the things that they've done to you in the past, stabbing you in the back. Anyways, he's very disappointed. Meanwhile, Shiv just plays it all down, saying it's just a play for now. She's not actually ever going to take the job. And we have this idea that, yeah, that's a lie, right? Like, that, is it really? No, it's not really just a play. She actually really does want this job. And she doesn't even recognize Tom's emotions here in this scene at all, which really speaks back to, again, feeling sorry for Tom, because Shiv really doesn't give a shit about him. Or at least that's the way it comes off in this scene, that she just doesn't care. And he even is getting a little bit emotional, like, I thought that was for me, right? Like, I thought I was getting a CEO job, and she just cares, like, she just doesn't care at all about it. So really heartbreaking to watch. But again, a hilarious start to the scene though, because Tom's like, oh, like for me, like if I get the job. So anyways, just some really great stuff there. So meanwhile, Kendall goes back to Walter and tells Lawrence that he still wants to save the company, even though he knows that they've been inflating and fudging some of their numbers. He says he thinks he can persuade his dad to change his mind if they're able to get back on track. He even talks then to the workers about not unionizing to help his case, though is this the right move to go against his dad again? And this was a really, really great way that this all played out, because they put us, the audience or the viewers, in the same shoes as Roman in this situation, and even his dad, that Kendall is really screwing us over just as much as he's screwing Roman and Lawrence and all them over, because the way that they do this, the way that's written, is that we don't know that all of this is just a power play for him, right? He actually doesn't want to save the company. He doesn't want to go against his dad again, and that's the way this plays out. But this is the way he brings it to Lawrence and says, and basically lies to him, right? Face to face, just lies to him here about what he's going for, and that he's going to try to persuade his dad. And so Roman finds out about this later, that he's trying to save Walter again, right? Word is out, that he's told Lawrence that. And so Roman pounces on this right away and discusses with Shiv whether or not he should tell Logan, which he says would put Kendall out for good, which it probably would, right? Like, Kendall crossing Logan once again after everything. Yeah, that probably would put him out for good. And I love how Shiv says to wait and let it blow up in his face. We get a really great scene with Shiv and Kendall earlier in the episode here, where the two of them actually kind of bond, and I really like that scene. But of course, Roman not ready to bond with Kendall anytime soon. But Shiv kind of talks him down a little bit. So Roman actually seems fine with that, as he still believes he is Logan's first choice of CEO. It's just so... I don't know, like, it's just so great to watch, but again, really disheartening, because we already know Shiv has already been chosen for CEO, and meanwhile, like, Shiv tells him that, not to worry about Tom, right? Like, you got nobody to worry about. You probably are the next in line for the CEO, but meanwhile, he should be worrying about Shiv, right? Like, meanwhile, he thinks that they're bonding, that their, relationship, is improving, and that they're really becoming a nice duo together. And meanwhile, like, she already just accepted the CEO job, and she's lying to his face right in front of him. So I just love how everybody is always deceiving one another, and they're all family, right? And that's what makes this show so great. Just what I love about this show. Everybody always trying to get the upper hand on the other one. And these people are siblings. These people are father-son or father-daughter. Like, it's just really crazy to watch, and just really awesome the way this plays out. But yeah, it's like Roman thinks that they're bonding, and meanwhile Shiv already knows that she got CEO, and she's just trying to talk down and make Roman feel better here. Just a really great scene. So anyways, Roman does drop it. He doesn't go to Logan. But after all, it doesn't matter because Kendall's move was a big power play, which honestly I didn't see coming. I thought this was a really great twist in the episode. All that stuff he told Lawrence earlier, as I just mentioned, was complete bullshit, right? It was complete bullshit in order to get a look at some of his real numbers and also give Kendall some more time to get the union off their back, which the union would have been a massive problem in this because he wanted to gut the company and lay off all these workers, and he wouldn't have been able to do that if, you know, half, I guess they talking about the majority of the workers were talking about unionizing, right? And so the way he plays this out is really brilliant in that he gives himself more time to get the union off. He really gets a look at the good, real numbers that Lawrence shows him because he thinks he's saving the company. So just a really great power move here. So then the next day, Kendall comes into the office and fires every single employee on the spot. The beginning of the gutting process. So I thought this was really great, and it's also a nice parallel to the speech about not unionizing just a day prior that he gave to these same employees, or at least a couple days before. Just so awesome to see. Like, he gets up on the, I think it was like the little box, I guess, at the very front of the room. Really, like the exact same look that he had when he was giving them the speech about not unionizing, like bringing this into the Waystar family and all this stuff, and then he just fires them from the exact same spot. I thought it was just a really great parallel and just such a badass power move by Kendall here, just ruthless, right? So we see Lawrence comes at him heaping mad. I mean, just so angry because he's been completely backstabbed now. And he's like, what are you doing, Kendall, right? Like, he's so confused as well. Kendall tells him that he's doing it because his dad told him to. I just love it. I love that. You know what? He's being honest. I love the line last episode where he said, you know, I've seen their plan, I saw my dad's plan, and my dad's plan is better, right? That stuff. In this episode, it's like, I'm doing it because my dad told me to. And it's the truth. Like, his dad told him to gut the business, and that's what he's doing. Like, he has no emotion, no attachment to Lawrence or the company at all. He's just following his dad's orders. I thought it was just really awesome. And I love this line from Kendall back to Lawrence, and he says, go find some other chicken coop, cunt. So, I just, like, such a great line here. And the way it's delivered here by Jeremy Strong, just such a dry delivery here, but it's so great. And just to see Lawrence's face after this one of just, your dad told you to, right? Are you an idiot? So just some really great stuff here. And again, just a ruthless move by Kendall. And I think this really means that he's playing the long game with Logan, right? This actually kind of, again, he knows what Logan is doing, right? He knows what Logan is getting him to do and kind of jump through this hoop. And so he's going to do exactly that. And I think that Kendall is now kind of coming back into his own a little bit and kind of seeing what the situation is and how he can play Logan a little bit. And so he's going to do exactly what he says. He's going to try to get back in his good books, and then we'll have to see what happens after that. So then later we see him at this party at Greg's place. That was a really great sequence there where Kendall gives Greg this new apartment, and then in a couple days he throws this massive party, and Greg is just begging him to get these people to leave his place. Just so funny. And Kendall's on coke, obviously, or some type of drug, maybe even serious than that, and alcohol as well, and he's like just totally out of it, right? Greg's just trying to get all these people out of his house because he wants to sleep. Just this hilarious sequence there, but Greg finally got his own place after a lot of the talk about that, and he goes to that one apartment where he's going to hit his head coming off the bed. Just hilarious. And he's like, well, it's a maybe, right? Like, just an awesome stuff there. Nicholas Braun, hell of a job. So, all right. So to end off this episode, which was, I thought, probably the best kind of ending sequence here, really setting up some great things. So Shiv gets into a fight with Gil, which eventually leads to him firing her and then her quitting on him. So, you know, they both kind of try to get the upper hand on each other. But essentially she is, you know, done working for Gil at this point. So she then calls her father and tells him the news that she is done with Gil, which is surprising. Like, this means that she's really doing it. And I really didn't think this would actually happen. For Shiv, even after last episode, I'm like, all right, she's playing them, right? Like, she's got some up her sleeve, but it turns out maybe Logan has some up his sleeve. I I don't even, like, I would put money on it that he is not actually going to make her CEO by the end of the season or by any time. I think this is all just an elaborate plan of playing her. But I will say, I think her being with Gil still helps Logan more. So I'm just wondering what kind of dynamic, or maybe that's not even what Logan wanted. Maybe he wanted her to stay with Gil for a little bit longer. But either way, because it's kind of like an inside agent, right? Like it's kind of like a double spy for into Gil's campaign, and it also gives Logan a little bit of an upper hand with the news stuff and politics. So, anyways, but now she's gone, so it's really an interesting dynamic here, and I did not think that she would actually leave Gil. I will say the scene did seem a little bit forced, just because the scene right before that was Gil promoting her to chief of staff, and then they get in this little argument, and all of a sudden he fires her. So I did think it was a little bit forced, but again, I kind of understood it because Shiv is from the standpoint of, well, I don't even need this anymore. Like, why am I even here, right? I'm getting the CEO job. And so I kind of get it from her point of view. And also, I will say, this sequence that plays out here with Shiv, she's doing the exact opposite of what Tom suggested. Just a couple scenes prior where he says, play the field, right? Like, stay at your job with Gil and kind of just see what's going on, leave your options open. And she does the exact opposite of what Tom says. So just again, kind of noting that Shiv really doesn't give any fucks really about what Tom suggests or what his kind of advice is for her at all. Anyways, so then we see Kendall goes to Logan, and he is impressed with him and what he did with Walter, and he's even more impressed after Kendall says that he will wear it. He will take the blame instead of blaming Logan, which I thought was also a really great touch there by Kendall. Maybe sucking up, but again, I think playing the long game with Logan. He knows what he has to do to get through to him. So now we see Roman this was the greatest thing ever, right, for Roman, and the whole way the scene plays out. So Roman tries to walk into the office all arrogant, right? He's all cocky. He's like, well, should I be a part of this? And so when he walks in, Logan then promotes Kendall to helping with the proxy battle instead of him, right in front of his face, right? And Logan could have picked a different time. He could have told Roman a little bit later. But this, like, he does this so intentionally here. And I don't even know if he was ready to promote Kendall at all to begin with. But once Roman walked in that room, he knew that he had to do it. He knew that he had to do that to Roman and also kind of reward Kendall. And I just love this. Roman's face is like what? Like, you're promoting him now? And he's just standing there. And Logan says, fuck off, be gone, bye-bye, right? So he's like, just treats him so horribly here. And it's like, Logan uses Roman here just for a couple days and then throws him right back out, right? He basically uses him to get back to Kendall, right, to get back to Kendall and make him gut the company and do that whole kind of dynamic, pitting them against each other. And then once Kendall does what he was asked and kind of passes Logan's test, then he just throws Roman right back out. So it's just a ruthless, just like terrible for Roman, but he's an asshole, so it's hard to feel bad for him too. But anyways, just a really great scene here. And meanwhile, Kendall gets comfortable in the office as Logan welcomes him back. He says, "You did good, son. Make yourself at home." And that is where we end off the episode. So Roman taken down about I don't know, like 1,000,000 pegs. Kendall promoted a little bit, kind of getting back into that inner circle with Logan. And Shiv turns down Gil, and now she's firmly in the position to take the CEO job. Whether Logan will actually give that to her, it definitely remains to be seen. But anyways, that's where we end off this one. Alright, so it's just a rating for this episode. I'm going to give this one a 4.8 out of 5. Same rating as last week. I thought this episode, again, was really, really great. And I thought, particularly in this episode, as I've been mentioning throughout the recap, I suppose, but just such a great job of achieving the proper balance between comedy and drama and knowing when to provide those moments of levity with Tom and Roman and Greg, right? Like, Greg is kind of the butt of the joke a lot of the times, and the way that they slide those things in there to those scenes where otherwise they would be quite dramatic and maybe even like heartbreaking, right? Like some of those scenes with Tom. But then we slide Greg in there, and it just kind of provides that moment of levity where you're like, okay, these people are all assholes, right? Like, I hate these guys, but this is hilarious. Like, just seeing these types of characters and the way that Greg interacts with Tom, the way Tom interacts with Greg. So it's just really, really great the way they do these. And I thought that's maybe the show's greatest strength, as I said off the top. Just really awesome. So, obviously, Roman takes a step down this episode, to say the least, at the very end of it. He thinks he's in line for the CEO position, and then all of a sudden, Kendall takes his spot in the proxy battle, and he's just kind of thrown away like a little piece of garbage at the very end by Logan. So, really tough to see for Roman there. And then we see Kendall adopted back into the family by Logan once again, and we'll have to see if he really is playing the long game with Logan, and whether he has some plans here. I don't think they would just, I think that'd be a bit repetitive for him to, go back with Sandy and Stewie and, essentially, just orchestrate another takeover. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he really is now on Logan's side. But we're going to have to see if he somehow decides to play him somehow, like some other way in the rest of the season, and how that'll play out. And then, of course, Siobhan, but Shiv. I think she's going to regret leaving Gil. I think this is a really bad decision for her, and the fact that she doesn't see how this could be bad, and the fact that Logan is probably playing her, is really kind of disheartening. You kind of feel bad for her because you kind of know where this is going, and yeah, I just feel really bad for her now that she's left Gil and essentially abandoned that whole career in order to take the CEO job, which I don't think she will ever get. So anyways, that's a really interesting dynamic to watch going forward. And poor Tom, man. Like, really poor Tom in this episode. I love the moment where he tells Shiv to fuck off when her and Roman are making fun of him at the dinner table in that scene. That just, like, so satisfying to see Tom finally fight back for once in his life. But yeah, you do really feel bad for him. He's just constantly being lied to and just treated like shit, really, by the family, and particularly Shiv, who's his wife, right? And so, anyways, you do feel bad for him. Matthew McFadden's doing a fantastic job as Tom. And I will say, this is a much better start to the season than it was last season. I think both these episodes have been fantastic so far, whereas I thought episode 1 and 2, again, are probably the worst 2 episodes of the series. I thought after episode 5 of season 1, the show really found its footing and really became one of the better dramas on TV. But the first half, episode 1, 2, wasn't the greatest. And I think they were kind of struggling finding that tone. But once they did, they really haven't looked back, and it's been really great. So, and I'm really, really happy that the first 2 episodes have been this good. And I'm just hoping for at least more of the same or somewhat similar to the level that we've been at in these 2. So, favorite character for this one, I got to go with Shiv, of course, played by Sarah Snook. Sarah Snook's doing a really great job. I think she's one of the best on this cast for sure. And her character, last season, I mean, we definitely spent a lot of time with her, but I think her kind of getting integrated now into the family and being given the CEO job, or as of now, is really going to kind of give her a little bit more development, and kind of see a little bit more of her and her interactions with her siblings and, of course, her father. And like I said, I think she's going to regret leaving Gil. I don't think that she's ever going to get this CEO job like Logan promises her, but we'll have to see. That's all part of the kind of journey this season. And I'm just hoping that Shiv recognizes this sooner than later, unless she might be in a little bit of trouble, right? I mean, she'd be fine. They're all rich, right? She'd be fine. Let's not go too far with this, but she would definitely be in some trouble. She's just essentially abandoned her political career for what may end up being nothing. So, anyways, we'll have to see. Those are my thoughts then on this episode of Succession. Thank you guys so much for watching this one. And again, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the episode and some of your thoughts on, of course, the renewal as well, right? The renewal for season 3. What are some of your thoughts on that one? And also, what are some of your predictions going forward this season? But anyways, guys, once again, thank you so much for watching this one. And we'll see you in my next review for Succession Season 2, Episode 3.